Greetings, salutations, and welcome to Sportslook, the sports television program for the high plains of West Texas and eastern New Mexico. I'm your host, Doc Elder, and in tonight's episode, I guarantee that you will not be shortchanged because we will talk about everything from short goes with Albert Flynn, the head coach of Greyhound Rodeo, to shortstops with Amanda Fiefel, the head coach of Greyhound Softball. I will finish up with a short overtime, at least short by my standards, and I will do an Eastern recap shortly. Greyhound women's basketball, 1 week ago tonight, played a game in Silver City against Western New Mexico. They lost, and unfortunately, that loss dropped them out of the Lone Star Conference postseason. The Greyhound guys also lost in Silver City, but because they had already clinched a spot in the postseason, they will be playing our bitter arch rivals, West Texas, tomorrow night in the first round of the Lone Star Conference basketball tournament. Greyhound baseball had a weekend series against nationally ranked St. Edward's University. The Greyhounds won game one. The Greyhounds won game two. Greyhounds lost game three. Greyhounds started game four, and in the bottom of the first inning, the umpires called the game because the 65-mile-an-hour winds were in danger of toppling over the light fixtures. I have now seen everything when it comes to baseball games. Well, that is going to conclude an Eastern recap, so we'll clear this out and we'll bring in our first guest, Albert Flynn, right now. Welcome back to Sportslook, and we welcome back to Sportslook one of the individuals that definitely makes Eastern New Mexico University the special place that it is, the head coach of Greyhound Rodeo, Albert Flynn. And Coach, welcome back to Sportslook.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Coach, it doesn't seem to me that long ago that we were talking about the great success that your kids had at the college stage rodeo, but that was a whole semester ago.
It certainly was.
Well, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but obviously you got off to a great start. How did the rest of the rodeo season go in the fall?
Well, it didn't get as good as it began, but it survived. I think the girls are still probably down about 7th place. They've had a few place during them other rodeos, but with the competition what it is, and the girls that one here was in the breakaway roping, and they've been running against 200 breakaway ropers every week, and it's just, you got to be 2-3, 2-4, something like that to make it back to the short round.
So obviously every rodeo is a little bit different, but what really worked for you in the first rodeo, our own rodeo, and didn't quite click the rest of the way?
Well, we won first and third in the breakaway roping, and we had a goat tire place in the goat tying. One of those girls that was third here, she was third or fourth at another rodeo. We're waiting on the girl that won first. At this last week, she was 3-2. You had to be 2-7 to make the short round. She's still roping and catching, but not drawing quite the calf she needs, and it's just so competitive, and everybody's capable of being quick. And if you're 3, you're not going to make it to the short round. If you can make it to the short round, you have a chance to win first. But 2-1 to 2-7 is what made it back to the short round in Odessa. And then the goat tying is just about, it was 6-7 to 7-2 to get back in the goat tying. And we had a girl in Odessa. She was 7-1 and 7-2 on her second one, and she placed in the goat tying. But I didn't have her on the team for points, but still she made 2 really nice runs. Caitlin Crowder.
And we will point out, for people that are watching this program that are familiar with rodeo, they'll know this and they can just kind of roll their eyes. But uh, a lot of it is skill, but a lot of it is luck.
Yeah, you have to, the goats were really good there in Odessa. We took 10 goats to Odessa and they placed on 6 of them. And that's how many goats they drawed out to come back to the short round. And in the short round, Caitlin was 7-2 and was 5th. And there was another 6 and quick 7s. But in the breakaway roping, they still got to run at the barrier. You have to have a calf that's not going to run away from them and one that they can rope fairly quickly. But, to get out and throw your rope and be 2-5 or 2-2, everything has to happen quickly. The bulldogging in Odessa was a little tricky. Steers ran really hard. Some of them ran to the left, which was into the bulldogging horse. And we had a boy, Bodine, was 5'6" on his first, and he won 3rd in the first round. And then in the short round, things got close. Steer run into his bulldogging horse. He didn't have room to get down. And Rowdy Norwood, he was long in the short round, or in the first round, but he came back in the short round and was 5, and he ended up winning 3rd in the short round and 5th in the average. But, and we had some boys that were 10, 11 in the tie-down roping, but you just had to be 9. And it's really the luck of the draw and then how good you're roping that particular day. That's all it is. It's not
And
rocket science.
it occurs to me that one of the things that makes rodeo so special is in a sport like track, you're just running yourself. That's the only factor. But in rodeo, there's at least one animal, and in some events, there are 2 animals that are involved. So you definitely have a lot more moving parts when it comes to rodeo.
Yeah, in the team roping, there's 3 people, 3 moving animals. And then in all the other roping events, there's at least 2, calf and the horse and the rider. And the barrel race is about the only thing that's just one person running around 3 barrels, and you got to keep them standing. And that building was pretty small, and them big horses have a hard time gathering themselves up quick enough to turn. But overall, our kids competed well. We just didn't win as much as we'd like.
So I've never asked you this question. How do you determine the individuals that will be on the team and the individuals that are just roping as individuals?
And the girls, I feel like capable of deciding what 3 girls is going to have the most points at the end of the year. And then I have to pick somebody that's going to win something that particular week based on what they've been doing in practice. System doesn't always work, but at the end of the year, the 3 girls that's on there all the time are usually the ones that have scored the most points at the end of the year. They may not have scored as many as we needed, but they were still the girls that capable and have won the most points throughout the year. We have to average 200 points out of every rodeo to win the region. And, we started at our rodeo with a little over 200, and then it dropped off. And, of course, not having anybody on the team there, well, we didn't get any points. And Caitlin probably had 80 points by herself. So if you have the right ones there, and you get 3 of them on there that get you 200 points, then you're in pretty good shape.
And I think you're being a little modest on yourself saying that it doesn't always work out. If people go to the Greyhound Arena and they look at the column for rodeo, they'll see there are a lot of times that you guessed perfectly right. So I would compliment you for your choices.
Well, thank you.
And you mentioned a young man by the name of Bo Dean. Tell us a little bit about him.
That's a young man that comes to us from Frank Phillips, South Dakota boy. Uh, I recruited him as a steer wrestler. When he showed up, he told me he was a team roper, and I said, "No, you're a steer wrestler." And he said, "I guess I better have Mom send me my horse." He made the short round at our rodeo. I think in the fall, he placed in the average, and he made the short round there. The boy Bulldog's really good for a young man, small, 5'9", 5'10", 160, 70 pounder. Uh, but he shapes cattle really well. Ropes calves fair, team ropes good. Uh, his partner come from South Dakota, and them boys came to school together. Um, he's a straight A student, which kind of sits well with me and my program, and but they've uh, his sister's going to come to school here in the fall, and but he's a hard-working boy, takes care of cattle that we ask him to. They're at school, but what a what a great individual.
Well, Coach, obviously we had the first rodeo of the spring semester last weekend at Odessa. What's the next rodeo on the schedule?
We go to Sweetwater March the 23rd, actually 30 days from the first one. Sweetwater is sponsored by Cisco and Ranger. For some reason, they have it in Sweetwater. I think Cisco has a branch there in Sweetwater, and it works great for us for traveling purposes. Uh, and it's a nice facility, but it'll be the 23rd, 4th, 5th of March.
Well, Coach, congratulations on the success that you did have at Odessa, and we wish you the best of luck moving forward. And let's hope that this is another year that we get some people going to Wyoming for the
There you go.
Nationals.
And if everybody's interested, the Sunday, the 12th of March, we have our annual timed event for high school and colleges here at the fairgrounds in the Roosevelt County Exhibit Center. So we'll come out, starts at 10:30 and runs until about 3 o'clock.
Well, Coach, I have basketball at State through March 11th, but I'm free the 12th, so I will definitely see you there.
Perfect. Thank you, sir.
All right, well, that is going to wrap up our first interview segment, so we'll clear the set and we'll bring in Amanda Fiefel from Greyhound Softball right now. Welcome back to Sportslook, and a privilege to bring back to the set of Sportslook the head coach of Greyhound Softball, Amanda Fiefel. And Coach, welcome back to Sportslook.
Thank you, Doc, for having me.
A lot has changed since the last time we talked. I would say the biggest change is for people that have not been to Greyhound Softball Field, they're going to be just a little bit surprised.
Yeah, super excited. Last week was our first time on the field. Definitely a completely new field transition as far as protective padding in the outfield. The entire field is now 100% synthetic turf, which is great for this type of area, especially what we experienced the past couple of days with the wind. So it's beautiful, beautiful.
Did you have any idea that that was going to happen when you got hired? Was it a hope that you had, or was this kind of just an unexpected bonus?
No, actually, so when I first got brought on, the conversation was there with the AD at the time, Matt Graurock, as the interim. And so him and I had a conversation when I first got hired about, updates and things along that line. I think the biggest the insurance that we had coming from the flood that we had a couple years ago, a lot of that went into the movement. But I think even moving forward, Tony Major and President Caldwell at the time were the two driving forces behind everything to really get us going to where we need to be. One, yes, aesthetically, it was great, but more importantly for our athlete safety, I think was the biggest thing. And so after speaking with Tony Major and bringing in an engineer and looking at all of the details, they went ahead and moved forward with the project. And like I said, Tony Major was the one that threw out the first pitch because he was the one that really supported and funded this project.
And it's funny, I of course go by Greyhound Arena and I go by the softball field all the time. And I'll be honest, a week before your games against Western New Mexico, there's no way that's going to be done in town. But lo and behold, they got it done.
Yeah, no, I think it kind of happened the same way last year as well when we got our new infield. We practiced for the first 5 weeks at the football field. But no, other than that, like I said, we are just so privileged and honored to be on the field. Whatever we had to do to practice elsewhere, we did what we had to do. We saw the bigger picture. We saw the field and the facility being completely updated. So we just went with it. But you know what? It's there now. It's beautiful. The girls love it. Like I said, we couldn't thank them enough for what's been done.
And if memory serves, and please correct me because, I'm an old guy and I forget things, but if memory serves me, you started out the season with a 5-game tournament, you went 3-2, and then you started out with a 5-game tournament the next week and you went 4-1. Is that the
Yes.
start? That's a pretty good start to a season.
Yeah. No, I think we have a lot of new faces that is into our lineup and the different dynamics. We have a lot more depth than we did years prior. I think for us going out that weekend, I think it's always that learning curve, especially for our younger players that are in our lineup right now. A lot of our upperclassmen and our leadership, I think, are kind of showing them the ways what we need to do, and it's good to see. I think that just goes to the culture of what we're building here at ENMU softball. But I think, like you said, the record really at the beginning was great. I think it really prepared us for what we're getting into conference-wise. But yeah, it's always good to go on a winning high right before you go into conference play.
And speaking of which, you opened up against St. Mary's, a nationally ranked team. And here again, if memory serves me, I think you took 2 out of 3 from them.
We did. We went in there. We executed everything. I think we played a lot of small ball as far as that goes. We got runners on. We had some clutch hitting at that time. Our pitching staff absolutely kept them in control and obviously guessing at the plate. So I think for me, that was great to see, especially, again, having a lot more depth in the circle this year than just riding Brooke Ledger as they have in the past here. And so I think for us being able to see those other arms really excel was great to see.
So what was the main factor? Was it that you got consistently clutch hitting? Was it that you were defensively sound, good pitching? Or was it really a combination of all of those that helped get you the success?
I think it was both sides of the ball, really. I think defensively, we shut them down. We made some great plays. Jen Gress out in left field made a couple diving plays. Azalea Martinez in center field as well, tracking balls down. I think offensively, we were able to kind of move our lineup around a little bit, play with some speed at the top and bottom of the lineup. Again, play small ball, get runners on, a couple stolen bases, and then a couple of our big bats really came through in clutch situations. But no matter if we were behind or ahead, I think our energy stayed up the whole time. I think our dugout is electrifying this year. They are full of energy, and I think that's really what propelled us to stay in the game and obviously stay focused.
And then you come off the weekend against St. Mary's and you play our bitter in-state arch rivals, Western New Mexico, first home games at the new facility. I got a chance to see game 1, and your ladies looked pretty good in game 1 against Western.
Yeah, no, it's always a fun time when you play anyone in state. That in-state rival Division II mindset of trying to be the best team in state. Yeah, I mean, they're getting better too under Ashley Hickman, but I think across this conference, no one is counted out. No matter 1 through 15 of this conference, you're always playing someone nationally ranked. But at the same time, against Western New Mexico, especially on the new field, I think the girls were a little anxious to be in front of our home crowd for the first time, but I think the girls did very well. We came out, got it done in 5, which is great. I think it's always good to see, but throughout the series, we did take 2 of 3, and so I think it's always a good high note to go off of that in-state rival and win.
And I have to admit that I was really glad you won it in 5 because I've got that day job that I had to do. So I had to kind of leave. I was looking at my watch, but you got it done so I could get to office hours on time. Then give Western credit. They win game 2 of the doubleheader. They have to go into extra innings, but they get a run and you weren't able to answer. But then in the getaway game on Wednesday, you definitely put a whooping on them.
Yeah, no, and going back to that game that we actually dropped the 1 run, we fought that whole time. They went up 2, we came back 2. They went up 2, we came back 2. And I think again, that constant fight of we're never out of it, I think is a great mindset for our girls right now. But yeah, so that last game too, I think we kind of imploded and kind of showed them, our offensive strength. But for me, I think I want to see that across the board all the time. Like I definitely think we have the power and the speed this year throughout our lineup to mix things up. And so I'm just glad that they were able to pull that last game out.
And then this past weekend, you go to Austin, Texas, and you play against St. Ed's, and close games just doesn't quite go your way.
Yeah, no, I'm not going to sit here and make excuses about it. I think on the road, it's tough anytime in a different environment. But I just think we left way too many runners on base. Again, I think our pitching staff did a great enough job to keep us in the ball game all 3 games. I think, honestly, our bats just fell asleep. We had runners on almost every inning. We had bases loaded a couple times. I think if I went back the first 2 games, we had 17 runners left on base the first 2 games. And then the second game that went the 10 innings, that we went extras in the third game, we had 15, I believe, left on base in a 10-inning game. So it's very heartening when we can't just push it across. And I think that's the biggest thing. We're getting them on, but we just can't find that clutch hit this past weekend to really open things up.
Last fall, I had an interesting moment when I was in an airport in Las Vegas, and I was on my way to Phoenix to broadcast the Greyhound men's opener against Grand Canyon. And lo and behold, I saw you and your assistant coach there, and it's like, wow, you do a lot of recruiting. So what's the recruiting process like? How do you first learn about a prospect, and what convinces you that it's worth going to look at them in person?
Yeah, I think for me, obviously, I want the athlete. I want the best all-around student athlete. I think for us, like going back to that culture, I think for us is definitely that family environment, that blue-collar mindset of grit and grind every day. We want that athlete that wants to be, again, our mindset all in here. And so for me, it doesn't matter where they are. If they're in Oregon, California, Texas, New Mexico, Maryland, I don't care. I'm going to go find the best athlete that I think that can make an immediate impact for our program. Again, age does not bother me as far as if they're a freshman, a transfer, a grad senior. For me, I want to build this program up and obviously make some different areas, but going off of our culture and who's going to mesh well with our current athletes and what they bring to the table.
Well, speaking of assistant coaches and such, who is helping you out this year at both the assistant, and do you have a grad assistant?
Yeah, so Shanna Smith is a returning first assistant here. She was with me last year as well. She primarily works on all of our infield defense and hitting. And then Shayla Dominguez is our graduate student who is here as well. She actually is an old player of mine of when I coached at Clarendon College. And so she is also overseeing the defensive work of the outfield and then hitting as well.
And in terms of the players that you brought in, was it a mixture of freshmen, JUCO transfers, or is the recruiting class this year kind of heavy one direction or the other?
No, I think it's evenly split, to be honest with you. We have a good amount of returners from last year, but at the same time, we brought in a good handful of JUCO transfers that came in along with a freshman class. So I think we're pretty much balanced out. We don't have any grad seniors or anything like that. But pretty much across the board, we went for the best strength as far as the junior college transfer route went. No one from the actual portal we brought in. It was just straight JUCO transfers and then freshmen that we've recruited out of high school.
Well, Coach, looking ahead, is the Lone Star Conference, and admittedly it isn't a very long set of statistics, but is the conference kind of shaping up the way you thought, or is there one team that's really overachieving and one team that's kind of underachieving?
Yeah, I think when you look across, like I said, there's any amount of teams, 1 through 15, that can kind of shake things up. I think when you get a team on a hot roll, just depending on the strength of their schedule, if they're home, away, depending on what it is. But I think right now, Texas Women's is the biggest one that's shocking everybody. I know Gay McNutt, who's the head coach there now, came from Commerce, who brought a lot of their players from Commerce to Texas Women's. So that strength of that Commerce team is now at Texas Women's. So it's basically all the Commerce girls, but in a new uniform. But then you also have your top top dogs, as always, the UT Tylers, LCUs, Angelos, things of that nature. But, the middle to the bottom half of the pack, I think, are the ones shaking things up. I think with new coaching, a lot of young new blood that is in the conference is really good. But I think this conference, by far, you go out and talk to anybody, they like to compare us to the SEC of the Division II conference. So when we go out recruiting, I pride myself in saying that, because no matter which weekend it is or who you're playing the top-notch team every weekend.
Well, Coach, congratulations on the success that you've had at this point in time, and let's hope that Lone Star Conference postseason includes the Greyhounds.
Absolutely. We're pressing for that top 10.
All right. Well, that is going to wrap up the interview segment of Sportslook. So what we'll do is we'll clear this out, and I'll finish up with an overtime right now. When LeBron James recently passed Kareem Abdul-Jabbar to become the all-time career-leading scorer in the NBA, I heard a pundit say, well, now finally King James has ascended to the throne. And I thought to myself, there aren't a lot of NBA players anymore that have nicknames like King James. Back when I was younger, everybody had a nickname. There was Wilt the Stilt Chamberlain. There was Oscar Robertson, the Big O. There was Jerry West, Mr. Clutch. There was Chet the Jet Walker. There was Earl the Pearl Monroe. And there was Joe Jelly Bean Bryant. Joe actually had a son who also played in the NBA and also had a nickname. You might have heard of him. His name was Kobe Bryant, and his nickname was the Black Mamba. R.I.P., number 24. Well, that will wrap up an overtime, and that will wrap up an episode of Sportslook. I would like to thank my guests, Albert Flynn from rodeo and Amanda Fiefel from softball. Had a great floor crew. Once again, my director was Logan. So, for those aforementioned people, this is Doc Elder saying, so long.